The Diva Revolution podcast is recorded on the lands of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and I acknowledge their continued spiritual connections to lands, waters, and customs. Diva. A podcast for the modern priestess, desiring to be fully expressed to live, love, and lead on purpose. I'm Peter Bastian, and this is the Diva Revolution. Hello, Divas. Welcome to this very special episode of the Diva Revolution, where I'm interviewing the absolutely sublime Melanie Taylor. And Mel is, in human design speak, she is a 6-2 emotional manifesting generator, and really is just one of the most compassionate women you'll ever come across. She is just... like, that really is the word. She is sublime and brings such a beautiful presence. And we have such a deep conversation. And this, in essence, is really, I believe, the only way that Mel knows how to communicate, which is just so beautiful, is with such vulnerability, and that creates that depth and connection. And she speaks into that. During our conversation, we talk about her evolution of being the young girl, the child who felt she needed to be the happy one for the family. She shares really vulnerably about her dad's battle with depression and a suicide attempt, and what that meant for Mel, and how it actually ended up cracking her open. It's such a rich conversation that I know you're going to love listening to, because you'll be able to take away from it the power of vulnerability, the power of authenticity, and how as leaders we need to lead with our heart, trust ourselves, and be open and willing and available to receive support. Look, there's just so much. We actually were saying, or I was saying, I need to have you on again to continue talking to you more about just her magic, her essence. And we speak a bit into her human design. Again, as I say, I'm going to have her on again because she's so special. Everyone I speak to is special, though. Like every person I interview is really, really beautiful in their own unique way. Mel gets, actually, we both get a little teary in here as well, which is kind of special and beautiful, because again, this is what leading beautifully is all about: living authentically, loving wholeheartedly, and leading beautifully, which are the three values of the Diva Leader Academy. And so the Diva Leader Academy is the space that I've cultivated and curated for women who want to be fully expressed to lead themselves and others through life beautifully. So I will put the links to the Diva Leader Academy. You can go and have a look at it, see if it's something that you want to be involved in. We start March 20th here in 2023. That's the first intake. Please, I don't know when the next intake is going to be. It could be next year. So please do book in a call with me to discuss. If you're brand new to human design and you want to know what your human design is, please visit my website, thedivarevolution.com. And again, links will be in the show notes, so you can get your own human design chart done. It's free. You get a free report as well. What else is there to share with you? Just so much goodness and juice. And so before I get to the interview, let me just read to you Mel's bio, so that you can begin to tune in and connect with the specialness of her. So success on purpose came about as Melanie asked herself, what is the purpose of life? Whilst working in palliative care as a nurse for 18 years, supporting people to die well, and also a time in her life when she was struggling with depression, anxiety, and feeling unfulfilled, this question kept arising. Although she was making a difference in the lives of others, Melanie didn't know how to make a difference in her own life. Melanie is on the journey of learning how to be a human being instead of a human doing, and supporting high achievers to do the same and thrive. So I know you're going to enjoy this episode, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Okay, enough from me. Let's go into the interview. Hello, beautiful Mel. Welcome to the Diva Revolution podcast. How are you, my darling?
Oh, gorgeous. Wonderful. Thank you. Very grateful and excited to be with you and in the presence of your beautiful energy and your divine feminine essence.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I wanted to dive in straight away and ask you, because the Diva Revolution is all about women living the full expression, like feeling fully expressed, to live, love, and lead on purpose. And we have 3 values: to live authentically, love wholeheartedly, and lead beautifully. So firstly, what does being fully expressed mean to you?
Such a great question. And I always am very honest. It means going to those sticky, shadow, scary places. Actually. Because to be our authentic self, and I feel like we're always being our authentic self in the moment, because we're always doing our best from where we're coming from. But then the more we grow and the more we learn about ourselves, and then our fears come up and our triggers come up. And then as we release them, then we expand more fully into our authentic self. But that's all about, for me, unconditional love. And it's unconditionally loving self. It's unconditionally loving others. It's having compassion where, we're so programmed to go into survival and to go into sort of restriction and defense mode from our programming, from whatever happened. And, these things come up, and I'm feeling it more than ever because the vibration is so light now. There's just so much in the field, and just all these triggers are coming up. And it's just old energy that doesn't serve anymore. And so it's being with that. It's sitting with that energy, sitting with the uncomfortableness. And, for me, I'm very much about vulnerability as well. Sharing my story, so, to hold a safe space for others so that they can share theirs and feel safe, because we have this, I suppose, persona in society of perfection, and everything is we're perfect, and we're not. I'm a mess sometimes, and love to share that. And leadership is messy and authenticity is messy, because for me there's a lot of tears, I just had a client then, and it's all about grief. We always need to be grieving, letting go of the old to allow the new to come through. And that's about getting into anger, having sadness, the shock, the anxiety, and then eventually you come to the acceptance. The apoptosis happens, the death happens within, and then the new starts to come in. So, and that's the cycle of life. We have to have birth, life, and death. But I think the thing that we forget about, and we're not very well attuned to in society, is the death part. We're very scared of death and dying. And so we don't, and hence why we have so much disease out there, because our body's just so stressed and holding on to so much energy that no longer serves.
Wow, there's so much in what you just shared that I'm like, I should have been writing notes, because I want to go back to this, I want to go back to that. So the first thing I want to go back to is you were speaking about, because just before I go back there, just to touch on the last thing you said, because I want to come back to that as well, about our society, or, particularly I'm guessing Western culture approach and feelings about death. And what does that mean? And then also, but you were talking about so many triggers in the field. So you were saying about the energy feeling lighter and the frequency feeling lighter, and there's more triggers. So, and I think what you said just before that was like this process of evolving as humans, and, you know, learning about ourselves more deeply, facing, you know, the parts of ourselves, the shadows, and then also evolving and expanding. And I just want you to talk to me more about what you mean when you say the frequency is lighter, but there's more triggers, and how do we sit with that? Because I think that's really, really curious. And I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So how I explain it is as we are all a hot air balloon. Mm-hmm. So when we're born, we're unconditional love. We're just these beautiful, loving, enlightened, connected to our source beings. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is we come into life, we learn from society, our parents, whatever's going on, we start to formulate limiting beliefs, and we start to model our environment. And then from these limiting beliefs, we start to create fear-based emotions. I'm very scientific. So our hypothalamus formulates peptides as these neuronets, these belief systems fire, and creates fear-based emotions that get sent down into our body from our pituitary gland, and then we get an emotional reaction. So we're human beings and we feel. But what happens is we don't get taught, oh, you're feeling angry, or you're feeling sad, you're feeling depressed as little children. It's like, oh, that's all right, just express that, let it go. And we get, oh no, don't be angry, don't be sad. So then we just bottle it all up. So what happens is our hot air balloon gets all of these sandbags on the side. So we get a bit of shame, we get a bit of guilt, fear, disappointment, all those energies. And then our hot air balloon becomes really heavy. And so I feel like even at the age of 6, and particularly as a teenager, like I was 100 years old, my energy was really, really heavy. So now the energy is so light that we can our energy of the collective consciousness, the love, the source energy that we come from it's so there for us now. So the triggers are, oh, where am I holding on to fear? Where am I holding on to shame? Where am I holding on to guilt? And so they sit in the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind. So then we need triggers or mirrors. We need people to mirror back to us those energies that we can't actually see, we don't know that they're there. So I call them our healing angels. So, and the best healing angels we have, of course, is always our family. They say, what do they say? Check how enlightened you are. Go and spend a week with your family. So they trigger us because it's more for us to heal from within, so that then we can rise up to be more of that hot air balloon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've never heard it described that way with the hot air balloon and everything, but my brain loves a picture. I love a picture. I was picturing myself in my hot air balloon and all the things. So yeah, thank you. I love that. And I just want to touch on that piece around you talking about the hypothalamus, and, I think that's what you were saying, and how we create meanings. We have thoughts, and from there, the hormones are triggered that go into our bodies and create feelings and emotions. And I just want to tie that in with in human design, right, where the hypothalamus and your pituitary gland as well is where your ajna center sits. And your ajna center is the space and place and center where we make meaning. And it's like we love to, or the ajna loves to make meaning and sort through ideas, create logic, have understanding, be ordered, and essentially create meaning to our thoughts, experiences, ideas. And so, and then the way that you, describe it, then connecting with your emotions is, anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I think it's really beautiful how these, this information, you know, crosses over and ties in. And yeah. So the other thing I heard you saying there was about living authentically and loving wholeheartedly and leading beautifully is messy. And like, that's the truth of it. And I just really appreciate you speaking into that, because I think that when whatever aspects of our lives that we are leading ourselves through, because I'm a big believer that leadership, we're all leaders, right? We're leading our own lives. We're the leaders of our own lives, and whatever stage, age, place you're at in your life, you get to lead yourself through it first. And in doing that, you also get to lead others, you know, whether you're leading your family, whether you're leading a company, whether you're leading your own business, whether you're leading a room full of students, you know, in a classroom, or however it looks for you. And I think we create, again, we create expectation and meaning. Like, what is a leader? Who is a leader? Oh, I need to have all my shit together. You know, I can't show my vulnerability, because if I show that I don't know something, then, you know, are people going to listen to me? Like, all of that guff comes in. And so I just love the way that you lead with vulnerability. And, you know, when we first met, and we had our Zoom chat to get to know one another, the thing that drew me to you really was like, immediately you created depth with just being real and, you know, like just really vulnerable. I think you had been having a challenging day, a challenging time, and you were on the back end of that challenging time, or toward the end of that challenging time, and you're just really honest about it. We'd never met before, you know, and you're an amazing woman running a company, Success on Purpose, running, you know, you have a VA company as well. Like, theoretically, you've got your shit together, right? And you're fucking nailing it. And you're super successful. Yeah. So there's not really a question in there, but I just, you know, I'd love you to pick up on that and speak into the importance of showing that part of yourself.
Thank you for bringing that up. Because that really brings into the inner child for me that was always happy, and probably still makes me emotional. And because I was the firstborn and the happy one, to, I suppose, navigate the energy of the unhappy in our family. And so I took on the parent role at a young age. My dad had quite severe depression and, you know, attempted suicide at one stage. And so there's a very heaviness energy in our house. So I became the one that was the happy one to bring the light to, and that put a lot of pressure on me. And that was me being inauthentic, because really the authentic part of me was like, what about me? I get to be sad. I can be happy, but yeah, how do you be happy? You have to be sad at times as well. So there was so much pressure for me to always put on a happy face. And in society, thankfully I had some beautiful friends at school who knew our journey and I was able to share with. But other than that, you know, people would say, especially with depression and when my dad attempted suicide, like there's so much shame around it. And I can openly talk about this now because I asked permission from my dad and he said, yes. He said, will it help people? And I said, yes. So he allows me to talk about this. But yeah, there was so much shame around it. When my dad attempted suicide, which was one of the hardest times of my life, I was told not to tell anyone. And so then you have to carry all that on your own. And thankfully, I had one of my friends that I grew up with in school, and she just knew. And she would ring me for days because I had to go back to Ballarat and I was there for a whole week, supporting my family, being the happy one, to get everyone through. And yeah, she kept ringing me and I just didn't answer her calls. And then eventually I remember I was on my way back and I was putting petrol in my car, and she called me again, and reflex answered the phone. And she said, Mel, what's going on? I know something's going on. I said, oh, nothing. Inauthentic, pretending, nothing, everything's fine. I can't chat now. I've got to go. I'm filling up my car, petrol, bye. And I'm like, oh shit, now what do I do about that? And then I was nearly home in Melbourne, and she rang me again and she said, what is going on? I know something's going on. And I just broke down and I told her, and she said, turn around now. Come back. You're staying at my house. So I ended up going back to her house, and I stayed for 3 days, and I just lied in bed and cried. And she fed, I'll just never forget, just so grateful to her. We had a conversation actually last Friday, and I just said to her, I said, I'll never forget what you did for me. I'm so grateful. And really that brings, I suppose, awareness and the need for the work you're doing, because we need our sisters. We need our support structures. We need those safe places that we can go to and be vulnerable. And I also create that in my work with my work, my business, you know, my accountability groups, all of that, so that we all have a safe space that we can go to release and let go and be nurtured, be held, and not judged, so that we can, then I can be the more authentic and say that I haven't got it together. And the beautiful thing is, and especially I've got my own group, my peers. There's 8 of us. We call ourselves as 4 sisters, and we connect in every single day, and we just do a little video voice recording in Messenger, and we share what's going on for us. And we're just so real, and it's so beautiful, because I'll share something that I'm going through and what I'm learning, and then this ripple effect. Oh, thanks, Mel, for sharing that, because, oh my God, I've learned this and blah, 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 blah. And then the next person will come in and share what's going on for them. And then I'll be like, oh my God. So we're all just healing and growing, you know, so quickly together, and just supporting each other. And it's so beautiful. And yeah, we can't do this journey alone. I think that's the message, really. And we try to, when we put up these walls and we pretend everything is going, you know, is okay, but it's not. And when we can let go and just be vulnerable, then it gives everyone else permission to let go as well, and share what's going on for them, and be loved and supported around that. Like, there's no judgment. People have said things to me like, oh, Mel, don't judge me, I'm going to tell you this. And then they tell me, and I'm like, oh, no judgment here. Oh yeah, I've done that. Yep, been there. Yep, get that. And then we can just be on this journey together, you know, and live it and love it together.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing so openly and beautifully. Can I ask how old you were when your dad attempted suicide?
I don't actually know, which is interesting. I don't know the date. I don't know the year. I think I purposefully, so I'm not having an anniversary. So I'm just living each year without having I didn't intentionally do that. I think my soul did that. I don't, but I was in my 30s.
Yeah. And at the time, you were working as a nurse?
Yes.
Yeah. In palliative care?
Yes. I can remember so well. I was seeing a patient at his house, and for some strange, nothing's ever strange, is it, reason, I had to go back to my car to get something. I think I was doing a dressing for him. Yeah, this is coming through now. And so I had to whip back to my car, and like I never would take my phone into a house. But for some reason, I went back, and you know, you're always guided, aren't you? And I looked at my phone in the car, and there was about, I don't know how many calls from my brother. And I went, oh, something's, and you know, you just get that feeling, something's not right here. So then I went back. I don't think I didn't listen to the phone then, thankfully. And then I went back, finished with my patient, and then answered the phone, and then got the message, ring me straight away. And so then I rang my brother, and then he told me what had happened. And so then I had to do the dash back to Ballarat. So I don't even remember driving. An hour and a half.
I mean, you go, yeah, I can only imagine. And you go into shock and you go into survival mode and you go into, okay, what do I need to do next? Okay, I've got to get myself here and then just go. And I asked that question because, you know, I was kind of just wanting to place it in time, I guess, of your life, and looking at then, you know, that flow on effect of actually breaking down in front of someone, and that beginning of the unpacking of the removal of the masks we wear, the way in which we interface with the world, you know, and all of us put on masks, whether we know it or not, whether we believe it to be true or not. And, you know, it's a matter of, I believe, taking off the ones that don't serve us and getting right down to who am I? Because I believe in different situations, I bring different parts of myself to that. And I don't necessarily think that that is a mask in and of itself, but those masks that don't serve us, that keep us separate from other people, is what I'm hearing, is that was, you know, the moment that you actually, broke down and let someone see your pain. And you're so right about the power of being seen, witnessed, and loved and supported by another woman, by other women. And I think this is really key to our leadership and being fully expressed in our leadership. And I know you've shared with me before that you always have a mentor as well, you know, because it is really, really important. And I think that, you know, I come from a nursing background as well. And it's really important for me, and what I'm curating and cultivating in the Diva Leader Academy is, like, we need to take responsibility and accountability for our integrity and our practice. And, you know, as registered nurses, we would have to do, you know, continual professional development, make sure you keep your registration, upskill, or, you know, make sure your skills are there all the time. Whereas I think a lot of, well, you know, the online coaching industry, there's not a lot of regulation, if any. And so I think there's even more onus on the entrepreneur, on the coach, mentor, teacher person, to create that for themselves. And so one of the ways that we do that is with a mentor. And so I'd love for you to share a bit about your, whatever you feel comfortable with, but what's your relationship like with your mentor? What are the types of things that you take to him or her? And how do you find that that supports you to lead beautifully?
Thank you for saying that. That's so interesting, because I thought it was my love of learning, which is why I have a mentor. But yeah, it's so ingrained as a nurse, like, because I'm still living that same personal and professional development model. Like, I'm constantly doing that. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Peter. That's, yeah, good point. So interestingly, with mentors, I work with those that have had the life experiences that I'm going through, and that have actually worked through them. So they're holding that sort of higher space for me. I had a lot of anxiety and depression growing up, which didn't tell anyone. Of course, people probably knew, kept it quiet, didn't take any drugs because I was too stubborn, probably. I don't know, have to suffer, go through it. But secretly, I went to see some people. I went to see a psychologist, some counsellors and things, with absolutely, these were just the ones that I attracted at the time. I know so many counsellors and psychologists that are absolutely amazing. But the ones that I went to see, they actually didn't understand what I was going through at all. And I couldn't feel the energy. So, and some of them just had like a piece of a board, and like there was no therapeutic, and being a nurse, like a palliative care nurse, like, you know, therapeutic, having a relationship is so important, and you learn to I learned to make them straight away because I didn't have time because they were going to die. So I had to really hold a safe, non-judgmental space. But yeah, some that I went to see, they were just, it was like they were interviewing me and writing down what's going on. And one day I just got, and I said, well, have you had depression? And I'm like, no. And I thought, oh, no, yeah, I don't think you can understand where I'm coming from. And so that was just my experience. It's not right, it's not wrong. It just is, it just was for me. And so then I found mentors that had been on a similar journey, that had anxiety, had depression, and actually worked through it. So, and my second mentor, who I've worked with for 7 years, was had manic depression, self-mutilating, was sexually abused by her father, and just had 2 children die, like the life challenges that were thrown at her. And she was the absolute embodiment of the work. Like, grateful for life, grateful for all the challenges, like seeing the gold, got all the gifts, put all the pieces of the puzzle back together to be in her power. It's Dr. Rosemary McCallum. She's amazing. So that's who I wanted to work with. It's like when I heard her speak, my mouth was just open, and I was just like, oh my God, you can hear me, you feel me, you've got me. And then I had no money at the time too, building the business, wrote a book, had no money. All these things happened. And my last bit of money on my credit card, I thought it was a workshop she was doing, Power Up Your Purpose and Prosper, or something like that. And it was my last $130 or $50 or whatever and best decision I ever made.
I love it.
So yeah, that's how I find a mentor. It's not about the skills, the knowledge, how many courses you've done. For me, it's about who is this person, what life challenges have they been through, and how have they overcome them, because then I know they hold a very deep space for me to be able to really expand into.
Yeah, I love that you've shared this, because again, I think this is really important about, as we're leading others, we also need to be supported in leading ourselves. And so choosing a mentor is really important. And, I know I've had different mentors along the way I've learned from every single one of them. And yet I also knew that, okay, here's what's really important to me, because I'm a 48-year-old woman. And I'm also a self-projected projector in human design speak. And I need someone who is older than me. That was important to me. And someone who knew about human design. So these, I'm not saying this is, again, right or wrong, but this is what was important to me. And someone who, like you say, was doing the things that I'm looking at doing more or embodying more of, and so my mentor, she's been doing human design for like 17, 18 years. She knows the stuff. She knows how to coach me. She knows how to mentor me, because there's a really specific way to it. For example, a projector, particularly self-projected, I talk myself through things. She gives me space and I just talk. I have to talk and talk, and I ask for reflection. But a projector is, we're designed to lead and guide others. And yet we need to be able to hear ourselves to lead and guide ourselves as well. So it's more a sounding board than an advice giver or tell you what to do kind of coach or mentor, or give direction kind of a mentor, unless we ask for it. And so, I think it is really important about choosing the right mentor for you and being really honest with, well, what is it that I need? What's really important to me? And so, again, what you were saying about embodiment of what is that coach, mentor, teacher, person embody that I want to emulate, that I, and that, they know a bit about my story, because I think, listening to you speak, it's really important for you to be seen It's really important for you to be understood. And I think this is such a human quality. You know, like we all want to be, we all want a sense of being loved, and we all want a sense of belonging. Like this is just built into us, isn't it? And so, you know, I think that being seen is such a powerful medicine. And more than, I want to take back that word medicine, I feel like it's a soothing balm, you know? And I think this is, again, what we experience when we're in supported community, supported circles, whether, you know, supported spaces, whether it's that one-on-one, whether it's those group spaces, you know. And you've mentioned this a couple of times, which I feel is just so important as well, about that non-judgmental space, you know. And I think that's hard to create because, again, we're human. We make judgments, you know. And so what are the key pieces that you've cultivated within yourself in order to create a judgment-free zone?
So I'd have to give so much kudos to my nursing. So grateful. The most profound privilege, honor to be a palliative care nurse in particular, but a nurse and an oncology nurse that I was, because I came in, all my, I suppose, judgments came up because I'd be looking after different shapes, sizes, ages, cultures, all the varieties. But I don't know, I must have always had a, I don't know, good sense of intuition or something. But as the judgments would come up, I just go, is this true? No, gone. And then I just learned to I was always very interested in people. And I was always, and particularly what a good thing about my depression and anxiety, I would say, is that I was a very good listener. I didn't want people asking me questions because I didn't know what to say, but I became a very good listener. So I loved asking questions of people and getting to know them. And so I loved getting to the core and to the essence of the person and having those beautiful, deep conversations. And then, because we're all so much more than this, you know, there's so much more. And I love learning about people and their life lessons. And I got really good at it in palliative care because people, you know, tell me about your life. Oh, not much. Haven't done much, Mel, you know, rah, rah, rah. And then I just start talking. And then it's like, what? And then they would just tell me all this stuff. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, thanks, Mel. I never really looked at it like that. So we all have this sense of not being significant or recognized in society, but, you know, every single person has an amazing story. Every single person is doing an amazing job. And when we can just see that, you know, allow people to be seen, heard, and understood, then they can realize, and, you know, their magnificence as well. So, yeah, I would definitely say palliative care just taught me, and I didn't have time. I learned very quickly that I didn't have time to develop therapeutic relationships. You know, there's this thing out there, you've got to, you know, develop a therapeutic relationship. And I'm like, what? I don't have time for that. And so I got really good at just, I suppose, compassion. Compassion for me holds a really beautiful, safe space.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there because that's the exact word I was going to say. And I was going to say to you, I wonder whether you even realize this beautiful natural gift of compassion that you hold and that you just bring into everything. Like it just fucking beams from you. It's really beautiful, really, really beautiful. And I just acknowledge that in you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes me really emotional. I think it's my inner child that was always so loving and compassionate. And a school teacher once told me what she said. She said, Mel, you're very empathic, compassionate. I said, yeah, aren't most people? I said, no, that's really rare.
No, it is so rare. It's so rare. And you know, I'm grateful that you feel that deeply and receive that, because that is just the truth of it. It's just the truth of you. I see this, it's just so beautiful. And I feel like it's, again, one of those pieces that really attracted me to you, just being this, because it is rare. I want to share with you, I feel like it's really rare to hold this level of deep compassion for all humans in their beingness. And I want to point to some of your human design around that, but also I wanted to briefly, let me put a pin in this part. Let's go back to this part in a minute. The part where you were talking about therapeutic relationship, and I don't have time to create that. It feels to me like you're creating a human relationship, and I'd love to kind of extrapolate and look at that. But so for those of you watching and listening who know about human design, and even if you don't, you'll get to learn the more that you listen to this podcast. Mel is a 6/2 emotional manifesting generator. And so the piece I want to speak to here with you, amazing woman, is this 2 line and the 6/2. So the 6/2 is our profile. It's kind of like 2 sides of our personality, our conscious and our unconscious. And the more, and our unconscious is like our life story. And the more we connect with our unconscious life story, the more we realize our conscious soul purpose, right? The conscious soul purpose role that we play. So your life story unconscious is the 2 line. And the 2 line is in traditional human design, it's called the hermit. In the Diva Code system, which for those of you who don't know, the Diva Code system is a system of human design that I've developed that really elevates the language and uses specific words to invoke the feminine leader within all of us. So the 2 line is insight. And this is an essence that you bring, and it's actually, you're born with it. It's something that you naturally exude. And I speak to that because this is, like what you naturally exude is loving kindness, is compassion, is like openness and welcoming to all. And the 2 line is one that is a projected line, meaning you don't see that in yourself necessarily, right? But others see it in you, and others are drawn to you because of this thing. And again, it's this unconscious side of ourselves that the more we see it and the more we recognize it, the more we step into our soul purpose, the more we get to be that full expression of ourselves. And just so I'm loving the way in which, this conversation is unfolding and how beautifully that ties in. And so when I say that to you, how does that land?
It's it's so hard. It's so embodied. It's so I feel very grateful for that reflection. Thank you so much. Because I don't know. I think we think we have to work at stuff. Like you have to find this stuff. But the truth is it's already there. And that's why we just need beautiful people in our lives, those supports, sisters, mentors, to reflect that back to us, to know that it's who we are. We're not looking for something that's actually within us.
I want to read to you. I've got some notes up here about your human design, and I feel like this is really beautiful, considering what we've just been talking about, because something I pulled specifically out of your chart is so in human design we have our 9 energy centers, and when there is a line that connects one center to another, it's called a channel. And it's like, I describe it that, and at the end of each channel is a gate. right? So there's gate here and a gate there in the channel. And I describe the function of these as the channels are like how our centers talk to the other center. And so all energy in our body, so we have the two centers here, we have our throat center. So imagine like the Hindu chakra system, the 7 chakras, we know where they are, and then add another 2 on, basically, and because we have 9 centers. But all of the centers below our throat are pushing energy toward our throat. All of the centers above our throat are pushing energy down, right? So we have this, our throat is our main, like this is where all of our energy wants to be expressed. And so you have this beautiful channel that goes from your emotional solar plexus, because you're an emotional being. So again, just to clarify, in human design, if your emotional solar plexus is defined, you are considered to have an emotional authority, meaning you have a consistent emotional wave. There is a way in which you experience emotion that is, it's a wave, and there are ups and there are downs, and they're inevitable. There are ups and there are downs. And a lot of emotional types feel shame around these ups and downs, because when you're in the up, it's like, I'm fucking nailing this. I'm in love with life. There's so much creative juice happening. Everything's going on, and I just want to stay here forever. And inevitably your mood starts to dwindle back down. And, I think about, and I was describing this to another client. It's like, you kind of then like holding on with your feet, like, no, die, sliding back. Don't make me. I want to be back up there. Whereas it's like, okay, if you can just let yourself just go down into the low of this emotional wave. And again, I spend a lot of time supporting people to reframe what this low means, and can we make it a really beautiful opportunity to go inward for some self-care? Can you make it okay for yourself to be in that low moment or phase of your emotions without making it wrong, without making it bad, and spend, because you inevitably, as the sun rises, you will go back up into your sparkle, jazz hands, space. You will. And so it's that gracefulness with allowing yourself to be in that. And so you are an emotional authority. 50% of the population have an emotional authority, and it looks different for each. So your emotional wave is a collective wave. Beg your pardon, it's an individual wave. So your wave's quite quick, and it's high highs and low lows. High highs, low lows. And it, so it can be quite quick, like what, you're up, everything's, and then you're down. You're like, and you're up and you're down. And I just share that with you because I want to normalize it for people. Because if that's who you are, that's who you are. Don't make it wrong. And I know that you don't. I know that you know yourself, but I share this for others with an emotional wave. So your channel, right, that makes you this emotional authority is the 2212, and the Diva codes, we call it the channel of graceful influence. And so I want to read what I wrote about this. So the channel of graceful influence is designed to articulate beautifully and compassionately a message that has the potential to be transformative for others. This energy will stand out in a crowd and yet feel like they are alone in the crowd. For purity of message delivery, the person must feel in the correct mood. This channel can articulate messages from source energy. And I just think that's what you emulate.
Yes, thank you. That is so beautiful. It's true. And yeah, just going back what you were saying about the ups and the downs is I'm okay with that now, but I always thought I was a crazy person.
Yeah, right.
People can probably get diagnosed with bipolar.
Yeah.
But really, it's just you're a very expressive person and there's so much to be released in the downs, you know? But yeah, I feel like a lot of my life was I was in a room with so many people, but no one, like feeling so isolated and alone because, maybe that just the empath, the compassionate one, the deep feeler. And I know even some of my friends would be like, Mel, well, don't worry. What are you worrying about? Like, but it was the part of me that had the compassion as well. It was like I was feeling for people. Of course, there's those energies of sympathy, empathy, and compassion, and I've had to really work on them so it's not, you know, taking away my energy. But I think when you don't know yourself, it's a very lonely space because I was comparing myself to everybody else, and I felt like I was quite different. And now I love that I'm different. Like it's my superpower now. My intuition is my absolute superpower. But my intuition way back then, I didn't know how to understand it. No one else did. And so, it was incredibly challenging. You feel like a misfit in society. Like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I like everyone else? Why do I care so much about everyone? Why? And it's very exhausting until you know that it's okay. That's who you are. That's why all of this sort of work is so important, to know thyself.
Isn't it? And, you know, this is personally what drives me, because I was the girl who wanted to fit in. I craved that sense of belonging. I was the girl who felt too much. So would just like try to be small, try not to be too provocative, but in essence, then I kept squashing parts of me. And because, you know, I wanted to be liked and loved and accepted. I wanted that belonging. Like we all want belonging. And so that essence and that energy of standing out from a crowd when you really just want to blend in is like, oh. And so, like you say, having that courage, I think it requires courage and compassion to embrace the uniqueness. And, you know, for me, I really believe one of my biggest teachers of learning to embrace your uniqueness as beautiful is one of my beautiful sons who's autistic. And he doesn't fit in. He does stand out from the crowd. And it's just who he bees. And, you know, look, aside from the challenges he does face, he also faces life with this such beauty and such grace in his uniqueness. And, you know, it inspired me to really look at, well, where am I not allowing myself to be unique? And where am I creating judgment around difference? Because here I have this beautiful son that I love so, so much, who then, you know, society says he's different, but that's bad. That, you know, he's got a disorder and that's bad. You know, he doesn't fit into the system. That's bad. He's a problem. You know, we've got to fix him. And I'm just like, bullshit, actually, because he is this just stunning human who I feel we have a lot to learn from. You know, he teaches me how to embody my uniqueness, you know, and how to be fully expressed in who I am. And actually, there's nothing wrong with me. And, you know, so I loved that you brought that in, and I'm feeling emotional now. Look what you're doing to us, Mel. I love it.
It's a good day when you've had a cry. I've always got tissues on hand. My friends say, "Oh no, I wore Mel's here. I wore mascara."
Oh, well, I think it's so beautiful, and I really appreciate the again, appreciate this conversation and where it's going. And look, I think there's so much more I would love to talk with you about. So I'm going to have you on the podcast again. Is that okay?
I would love that. It'd be an honor. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Honor.
Perfect. Because I tell you what I want to talk to you about, because I think this is really, really important. And maybe we'll speak a little bit into it now, but you're a manifesting generator. And in, you know, like when people are starting to get to know human design and, you know, and it is true that manifesting generators have a lot of energy. You know, you are multi-passionate beings. You are able to, you know, manage multiple things at once. And yet you've experienced burnout. And I think this is a really important conversation, hence why it's probably not a 5-minute conversation, unless you have time.
I do. I purposefully put it on now.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, let's talk about it now. Let's talk. Probably because she knows I'm a talker.
Perfect.
So let's talk about it now, and I'll still have you back later because there's always more to talk about. But yeah, I feel like this is a really important piece because, again, I think that you know, generators and manifesting generators in human design world, you're the workers, meaning you have the motor, the energy and availability of that energy consistently to create and get things done, make things manifest, like bring alchemy to situations. So manifesting generators are here to work out ways of doing things better and faster. Now, every time I say doing, I think of your phrase, I'm a human being instead of a human doing. So I just want to put a little caveat in there. When I say doing, I'm also thinking being. But any type in human design can experience burnout when you're not passionate for the manifesting generator, when you're saying yes to too many things, when you're saying yes to the things that are the shoulds. So I'd love for you to share your experience of burnout. How did it happen for you? What led you to that point?
Right. So there's quite a few instances. As a nurse, I lived in burnout. I was a burnout. I was working off zero and then giving all the time from an empty cup.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think that's the nursing profession? Do you think that is the expectation of nurses, or is it like, what is that?
So for me, what I've learned is it's low self-worth.
Right.
And I didn't feel worthy of, I suppose, time for myself. I didn't know how to be kind. I wasn't taught growing up how to be kind to myself, how to love myself. I really learnt from my mum, who came from the country. She was one of 10. And so to sit down was lazy. That's how she was brought up. And so mum was always cleaning or doing something. If she had a spare 5 minutes, she would do something else. And of course, our brain, 98% of us is through observation, is how we grow. So I'm observing my mum, and then I want to be part of the tribe. So then I become like that as well. And so then if I had even in business early on, if I had a spare 5 minutes, I would fill it. Now I'll just sit. Breathe for a bit, or, you know, just do some daydreaming or whatever. Like, oh God, I've evolved so much. So yeah, but then that was also an inner child role in me called the nurse. I call it the nurse, the carer. So putting everybody first. So I learned that.
Yes, and of course, learning that from such a young age, like you said earlier, like my role was to make people happy and be the happy one and care and yeah.
So I'm in my role, and then I get paid for it as a nurse. And then I feel like the collective of the nursing tribe is that we are very caring and very loving, but at the detriment to ourselves. So hence there was a lot of back pain because people would do things that would harm themselves instead of, putting themselves first and saying no. So, so anyway, the physical burnout came for me in 2010 when I was working 2 jobs, doing a postgrad at Melbourne University, studying, and training to do a half marathon. And I actually broke my wrist during that time, which was my left wrist, which was my feminine, which was my receiving hand. And so I learned so many beautiful gifts in that. And I actually didn't take 2 weeks leave that I was given from the doctor. I went back to work. I went back to uni, went back to work. I said, I'll be fine. I work in the office with my broken wrist and I'm still studying. And anyway, thankfully, thank God, I had a mental breakdown in 2010, probably 3 weeks later. And I remember ringing up Mum and I was crying. I said, Mum, I felt like I was going to die, like I had an aneurysm, the pressure in my head. And I rang Mum and I was crying. And probably the first time I was vulnerable. So what a gift. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And she said, thank God, will you come home? Will you let us look after you? And I said, yes. So this is the vulnerability started to come. And then through this process, I learned that I was hopeless at receiving support. I was hopeless I could give till the cows came home, but I couldn't receive. So I started to witness myself, see myself, how uncomfortable I became. But I was on my knees. I had to receive support. So that burnout, though, was the breakthrough, because as I ducked the class at the end of the year through all of the challenges, this is the overachiever, I call her. I have an overachiever and high achiever. High achievers in love, overachievers in fear. And that's when I was receiving this Order of Malta award, I just went, oh my God, I can achieve so much in I'm not good enough, fear, pushing myself. Imagine what I could achieve if I was kind and loving to myself. And of course I had no idea how to do it because it wasn't in my environment. And that's when I first got my first mentor in 2011, when I was in Nepal, and I spent 2 weeks in a room with a nurse, a dear friend, colleague of mine, who told me about this mentor that she was seeing. She was a bit older than me. Vicky, I just caught up with her actually. We went to a sound healing last weekend. And yeah, she told me about her story and limiting beliefs. And by this time, I actually realized that I had them. And I said, I've got to see this mentor. So that was my first mentor in 2011 that took me on this journey. So, and I learned how to be more, be kinder, access my parasympathetic nervous system. So my relaxation response, deep breathing, meditation, journaling. That's why we do all those things, is to get into our parasympathetic nervous system. And then my non-negotiables is a bath once a week, and I spend time on my own. I'll go to a cafe, read a book, do some journaling. So I have all these touch points that I need to keep full. And so I've mastered that, working less, got VAs, got everything in place, had that mastered. And then I had an emotional burnout last year. So that was, for me, a different energy. This is where the high achiever or overachiever in me probably listen too much to my coaches rather than trusting myself and my intuition. And because I am so good and committed at things, that can be a detriment, because I will flog a dead horse as well. So I kept doing the stuff that I was told to do instead of trusting my intuition. And so I emotionally actually burnt out. So it was all the webinars, the free webinars, the social media, the Facebook lives, all of that stuff. So I did it, and I needed to do it to a certain point because it was very good for me to be vulnerable and really access that muscle. But then it got to the point where I'd learnt my lessons and I was still doing it. And now I know it's not me. I'm actually an introvert. It doesn't fill me up to be on social media. It actually, I think, what am I going to talk about? And all, it's just like puts me in stress, but I've got to do it and all this sort of energy. And so thankfully, I had an emotional burnout last year. So now I've reprioritized everything. Now I'm listening. Now I'm slow, and I just wait for that. My soul will give me the answer, that inspired. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. And then I'll take action from that place, which is coming from love rather than from the doing, from the fear. And because we're all different. Our businesses are all different. And I think it's about giving onus back to ourselves. And I was always very good at disempowering. I'd always, oh, well, they know, they're better. They've done the courses, you know, but we've got to always come home to ourselves and check in. And what's my truth? What do I actually need? Because I'm a human design that's different, you know, from everybody else. So
yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. So we definitely have to have another conversation, because there's like about 20 things in there I want to talk about. But to just kind of, round off what you were saying there, and again, why I love human design so much, because we all are all so different. And, you know, when I first discovered human design, I was coaching other women how to lead women's circles, and, you know, and then also how to create a business from that. And, you know, what I noticed, that teaching the same thing to different people didn't work for everyone. And what I noticed was people were trying to emulate me and how I was being, what I was doing, and the ways in which I did it, and it didn't work. But of course not. It's not meant to, you know, it's about them working out what works for them. And so at the time I discovered human design and was just in this like, oh my God, like this is, for the first time I felt seen, you know, like my type and authority is like about 2.5% of the population. So it's really small. And to finally, have that understanding that, well, no, I'm not meant to be like anyone else. You know, interestingly, in my human design, in my gene keys, my purpose is to be myself. Like it's literally, that's what it's written. It says, it may sound trite, but your purpose is to be yourself. And I'm like, what? Why can you like make it a bit more like, Anyway, that was my inner child going, oh, I wanted different instructions. Because I'm the, you know, the teacher's pet who, you know, I want to like tick off the things. I want to do what you tell me. And you're so right about this, giving away our power to those that we deem to believe they know better for us. And, you know, a while ago, it was probably coincided when human design came into my world. And then because it had such an impact on me, I started sharing it with, you know, my clients and anyone who'd listen, basically. And, but also I created this mantra for myself about, I trust myself first. I trust myself first. And it's not to say that I won't listen to others and I won't seek help and support and advice, but it's like you said, it's so important. You've got to trust yourself first, because, and again, another reason that motivates me to have as many coaches and mentors and teachers know about human design is because what you're telling someone actually may not be in their best interest. So, and when I say telling, you know, I mean, look, I think it's important that we all have autonomy, but we go to mentors and coaches and teachers for a reason. You know, we want to learn more about ourselves, and we do want advice. We do want a space to explore. And so then there are those questions that will come at us from that other person holding space for us. And so, it's just, so I could go on and on and on about this, but I just, again, I love that you brought this up and congratulate you for being in that. No, actually, what about what my intuition is telling me? And I'm sorry, you know, sorry is probably not the right word, but, it's, let's hope that it doesn't require us to have an emotional breakdown to claim that for ourselves. And if it does, that's okay too, you know, and really that probably speaks to your 6 line in human design. But that, my friends, is for another time. I want to wrap up this conversation by asking this final question of you, Mel, is you're already having a beautiful impact on the world and creating a ripple effect. If you could do us the honor of articulating, what is the ripple effect that you hope to have on the planet? Let's go big.
Well, my why I get up every day is to prevent and cure disease. Particularly being a palliative care nurse and an oncology nurse for so long, I learned so much from my patients, listening to them, telling me when they got cancer, how they got cancer. And I was like, what? Because so everyone has that intuition of the lessons that are coming in that we're not listening to. So when we can start to have more intuition, more awareness, be more connected to ourselves, then we can listen to those lessons, and then our life can unfold so beautifully, to live in joy, to live in love, to live in compassion, and then in contribution, so that we can be our best selves. And I was actually talking to a client earlier, and made me laugh about, like, a tree knows how to be a tree. It just grows to its biggest and best potential. And that's just what I want for everyone, is to grow and be themselves and live to their best, potential, and be the greatest expression of themselves and in their uniqueness, so that we can all just have a beautiful impact on each other and remember who we are, which is love.
Absolutely. That beautiful expression of unconditional divine love. Thank you so very much for this amazing conversation. I just adore you, and I hope one day we'll meet in person, Mel. And again, I want to have you back on the podcast here, because there's so much more we can talk about. But thank you so much for sharing your heart so beautifully, articulating it, for being you, and for the work that you do in the world. You are an absolute gem.
Oh, thank you, gorgeous. Thank you. That was so beautiful. Such a healing.
You've been listening to the Diva Revolution podcast. If you loved this episode, this is your invitation to be part of the ripple effect. Simply subscribe, rate, and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you tune in. Thank you, and have a divalicious day.